My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, as it is in San Diego. Good evening, as it is in pretty bright Poland. It looks pretty bright, Damien.
Yeah, still pretty bright for maybe like an hour or something. But of course, we are going slowly into autumn and then winter. And I've already seen it. I've gotten a bit of a cold because I'm just like leaving my house like that. And yeah, it turns out you can't do that anymore, really. So
Nope.
yeah, it's still bright for an hour, I hope.
Till April, Damien?
Sorry?
Till April now? That's it, till April in terms of t-shirt weather?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I still went out in my t-shirt today because I'm an idiot, but people were looking at me funny. So definitely not the right idea at this point in time.
Do we ever need to go out in anything but a t-shirt in San Diego? Does it get chilly there?
Sometimes in the winter, but right now we're just beginning of
What's
autumn.
winter though?
It's pretty warm.
What is it, and how cold does it get?
It gets to about, let's see, 5 to 7 degrees Celsius at night in December.
Well, that's
and,
chilly. Yeah, that's jacket weather.
Yeah, and about 15 to 20 in the day. So it's like it's pleasant during the day and cold at night.
Basically, Poland right now, I'd say that's kind of yeah.
Yeah, or southern Spain. It feels like southern Spain in winter. Plenty of sunshine though, still, right? That's one of the great things I find about sort of warmer climates, like southern Spain, for example. Even when it's winter, still got lots of sunshine.
Yeah, loads of sun, not that much rain.
Your D vitamin levels must be very high.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about that.
D vitamin, how about that? I think we would say in the UK we'd say vitamin D. In the US, vitamin D,
vitamin
and
D,
in Poland they say D vitamin. So a little bit of an amalgamation.
No, I think we also start with
Anyway.
vitamina, but yeah, whatever.
Fingers crossed my internet holds up. If it doesn't, I can always switch to my phone. But listen, we are here to talk tennis and not the weather, which most people, I'm sure, will be pretty pleased about. Headlines, of course, saw Musetti lose again in a final in Chengdu. Not forgetting, of course, the Challenger finals as well as the ATP finals. Damien, I saw your tweet earlier, making sure you got the Challenger mention in. Tabilo, of course, winning his first title there. Elsewhere, Bublik's incredible sort of season, Yannick Sinner Grand Slam matches aside, continued with a straight sets win over Royer, 6-6. And do we say 6-6, by the way? That seems a bit weird to say that. Normally sort of say 3-2 or 2-1. I don't think we say 6-6, do we?
Probably not. Into tie breaks, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Everybody knows what you meant, so.
Okay, good. And of course, the biggest news of the week, pumped drum roll, everybody. The rest of the world have won the Laver Cup. I nearly said retained. I do actually have a mini quiz for you on that, but we'll come to that later on. Let's start with Damien. Can't wait. Let's start with, I think, do we go, which is the bigger headline? Tabilo winning or Musetti losing? Let's go with you, Damien.
For me, it was probably Musetti. Also because I watched less of that final than I watched Hangzhou. But yeah, still obviously saw the finish. I have some respect for Alejandro Tabilo. Obviously, he was in the top 20 just last year, had a bit of a fall down and everything. And yeah, I'm glad to see him back. Last week he lost a Guangzhou final to Juan Manuel Cerundolo. So clearly Juan Manuel Cerundolo is better than Lorenzo Musetti, by the way. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was still mostly about Lorenzo. Just the fact that with the season that he's having right now, making Turin like 95% probability right now, he still has only 2 ATP Tour titles, and they're not recent. They're not 2024. They're not 2025. They're both 2022. Are they big? Hamburg, because he beat Alcaraz in the final, yes. Naples, just a pretty random event that was there for 1 year, was such a mess as well that season that, yeah, I mean, it just doesn't really, with all his other achievements, with the ranking that he has, it just doesn't make sense that he only has 2 titles. And I think with the finals, you mentioned already that like I wanted to add these challenger ones into the conversation, but it makes sense because it's now 7 in a row that he's lost. Also 5, obviously, just on the ATP Tour. And I don't think it was even that big a conversation before today. Like Monte Carlo this year, obviously, after the first set against Alcaraz, he cannot compete anymore due to just being, fatigued and that thigh problem or whatever it was. But today, it's clear that, that the picture sells it best. I mean, the disappointment was just obvious, and also having too much points to win it, having the 4-1 lead in the third set tiebreak, and just going really passive from there. It was unfortunately clear that he really wanted this one, didn't get it, and that's why I think it was a slightly bigger story than Alejandro Tabilo, mostly also because Alejandro Tabilo already had ATP titles, so I guess from, he actually has more than Musetti now, which is, just pretty insane.
Yep.
Tabilo's won ATP titles?
Yeah, 2 last year, Auckland and Mallorca, so he's got
Congrats.
more than Lorenzo now.
Okay. Vansh, muscle memory. Do you think that was largely responsible for this loss for Musetti?
Yeah, I mean, 2 match points. The first one you can't really do a whole lot about. Is just, serve +1 inside and forehand winner. But the second one is where Musetti will have a lot of regrets because he missed a straightforward forehand. He was a little bit behind the baseline, but just was trying to roll it, and he rolled it long, and he was disgusted with himself after the miss. And then also on the championship point, he misses an easy forehand there. Yeah, and then he just got really passive from 4-1 in the tiebreak. The rest of the way, he only won 1 more point, and he just wasn't. He was playing to not lose rather than win. And I think Tabilo was just a little bit more proactive in those moments. So that's where Musetti, he was clearly thinking about it, how he hadn't won a title since, I think his last title was 2022 October. It was in Naples.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, you mentioned already, 5 finals and 2 in the Challenger 125s as well last year in May. And then also he's made 22 ATP Tour semifinals. So if you think 22 semis, you only have 2 titles, that's very brutal. And obviously it doesn't paint the whole picture because this is a guy who made the semis or better of every big clay court tournament. He made the quarterfinals of the US Open. He made semis of Wimbledon last year, finals in Queens. Like, he's done so much winning. But, you can clearly see how much it meant to him at the end. And the frustration was understandable.
Damien, Tabilo on a hard court compared to clay. Is it now sort of, a real thing? Because I always thought clay was his best surface.
It's never really been a major problem for him. I mean, in fact, he does not own a clay court title on the ATP Tour. 2 hard court, 1 grass. Tabilo was pretty much raised in Canada. He represented Canada in the juniors. He was, I think, in Montreal or Toronto, one of those 2. Anyway, one of those 2 bigger cities, of course, on the east of Canada. And yeah, that's what he played on for most of his, the time when he was growing up and developing as a player. So it's never really been a problem for him to switch to hard. Of course, he did actually, I think, have more results typically on the Challenger Tour on clay. The 2 wins against top 10 opponents that he had before this tournament was also on clay against Djokovic both times, Rome and Monte Carlo. But I mean, it's always been very tough to say what is Tabilo's best surface, really. And at least for the time being on the ATP Tour, it's actually clay that is lagging behind a little bit, I suppose. But then again, you can also look at the Djokovic wins and everything. So
I remember him doing pretty well on the Mallorca grass in 24. I'm going to say a semi-final appearance.
Well, he won the title. I already mentioned that. Yeah.
My goodness me, and I was there. I should remember that. Never mind. There we go. That happens. But just quickly on a bit more on Tabilo, Vanch, is that I don't know, I find him quite a difficult player to work out. And I don't mean in terms of his game. I mean, what Tabilo we're going to get. He does seem to, I mean, I remember seeing him in Rio this year in practice, and well, all shots were spraying, and it did seem as though he was really shorn of confidence at that point. I have no idea what the exact run he was on. Maybe Damien can remember, but he was on a very bad run. It was like, but couldn't buy a win, as they say. And yeah, I remember seeing him recently in New York at the US Open against Zverev, and there were large parts of the match when he was better, when maybe he could have and should have taken a set. And I thought, wow, this guy is living with, albeit a Zverev that's not exactly in the best of form either. So maybe we need to give some credit to Alejandro Vanch.
Yeah, I mean, and also recently he's been in good form. Like he made the Challenger final in Guangzhou, I think, and he lost in the final to Cerundolo, but finally started to pick up some wins. There were a few good moments in the Zverev match. I remember like the second set was pretty tight, went to a tie break. He had some looks. He after Mallorca and after Mallorca last year and at some points this year, he just got on a bad roll. But when he plays like this, when he plays like the way he did this week, he was serving really well all week. He came through qualifying. He had all that confidence, and yeah, when he plays like this, he's just one of those players that's really hard to stop. Both him and Jari, unfortunately, after Rome last year, they went on a really bad losing streak. Obviously, Jari also had a lot of health issues, and he had to get surgery or get operated on for something in his ear and everything, and nerve problem. But Alejandro as well, yeah, I think he just felt the pressure this year as well of defending all those points, and it just didn't. It was very predictable that he was going to drop out of whatever the top 25 or 30 that he was at the start of the year. But now he's back, and now maybe we might see more consistency from him, hopefully.
I think in the build-up to the French Open as well, yeah, he had some physical issues that sort of made that appearance borderline, but he did, I think, play in the end in Roland Garros. All right, any final words on either of these two protagonists that made the Chengdu final, Damien?
Yeah, I don't really remember what I wanted to say. Oh, I actually know. There's a Tabilo fan that I follow on Twitter, and he's not like the person's favorite player, but they do mention him quite a lot, and they sometimes call him like Push Bilo from Push, and then there's something else for the aggressive version of Tabilo. And of course, he's a very aggressive player at heart, but I find it funny. He definitely has matches where he's just like so dedicated to keeping the ball in play, and I just remember him out-rallying Jaume Munar on clay courts, for example. It's happened before. So he is a bit of a tricky, quirky player for sure. Number 19 in the world was, I think, a touch too high maybe for his ability, but good to see him back in the top 100.
He's also, yeah, if you ever, I don't know if either of you ever spoken to him, but he does have that North American accent when he speaks, and yeah, he's equally fluent in both languages. And of course, you touched on the Canadian experience he had. Anything else in Chengdu that either of you think we should mention before we move over?
Well, 2 years in a row, Brandon Nakashima in the semis.
As the words were coming out of my mouth, Vanch, I was thinking, Nakashima made the semis.
Yeah, there you go. 14 minutes tick.
Yeah, cool.
Vanch
bingo.
I don't know.
Else?
It was nice to see Jerry Shank back after, back winning after 9 months or something like that, 8 months. Obviously, he's been back in the North American swing, but I don't think he was winning matches. Defending champion. So, of course, it's going to hurt him a little not to do that here, but I don't think the expectations were quite as high. Definitely still has to recover, but at least he got one win.
All right, we're going to switch over.
He lost to Brandon.
There you go. All right, let's switch over to Bublik against Royer. Which is the biggest story, Damien? And I'm going to just switch my internet, so I will be in and out in about 30 seconds. But give me some thoughts on Bublik Royer.
No, I mean, here also the bigger story is the bigger name, and Bublik, just, the whole redemption arc that he has this year. The fact that, let's say, around April-ish, but then especially from May onwards, and winning 5 titles, winning on all surfaces, where before this season he didn't have any clay achievements, like not only on the ATP Tour, but anywhere. And then obviously also making the biggest Grand Slam run of his career, the 4th round at the US Open as well, matching the previous best Grand Slam run of his career. Just, ridiculous. Redemption from what, Ghosty? I mean, from the years of basically being a bit of a clown, I suppose. Like, people thinking of him in the same tier as kind of like Nick Kyrgios, where you have the talent. What are you doing with it? Like, why are you throwing it away? And now he kind of just shows so much more discipline, so much more dedication, still keeping obviously that, that flair, that flamboyance to his game. It's not like he like totally stepped away from it. Today, for example, converting the first set the second set point in the first set with a second serve that was faster than the first, probably. It makes sense that Nicolas Kyrgios says that Bublik is awesome, because they are in some ways very similar as players. But yeah, what Bublik is showing this year is just a completely different attitude, mindset. Of course, there was that one crack maybe at Wimbledon where he felt the pressure. But right now in tournaments like this, if it wasn't for the fact that in Davis Cup on the weekend he retired to Kwon, like you just basically back him to be, yeah, sure, he's going to win this. And especially with how the draw came out and he kind of never faced an opponent, around his level, you just knew that he was going to deliver. And that's not Bublik. That's not the Bublik we knew in the past few years, because Bublik used to be so unreliable as the favorite. Just basically, you never really know what's going to happen. And now his mental attitude, like the bubble is not as easy to just pop, to burst it. So, I do think it's a bit of a redemption arc. And in terms of, where that puts him, obviously also the fact that he's now kind of in contention for Turin, like that would be a great story as well. Maybe if he started this campaign a little earlier than like May or April. But yeah, also to win on all surfaces in the last few years, basically no one has done that. In a season, I think only Djokovic and Alcaraz. So it's pretty ridiculous. I know these are 250s he's winning for the most part. Also the 500 in Halle where he beat Sinner. After that it's 250s, but it's just not the Bublik we knew before this season. And to kind of keep it going for so long, when it seems like mostly it's just really a run that relies on his mindset, on his on him to basically be, I don't know, like a more professional version of himself than before.
I mean, he's also going deep at the last 2 slams, two of the last 3 slams at the French Open. And it was actually the Wimbledon, the one where we probably expected bigger things for him. And that's the one where he arguably underperformed. But one other thing on Bublik from my side is, I don't know, I feel as though we have a post-puke Sinner. But is there a post with Bublik when he tries that shot with the handle of his racket close to the net, when he's just goofing around? And there was outrage on Twitter. Do you remember that shot? It was indoors somewhere around about 2 years ago, I would say, Vanch. And then since then, he seems to have knuckled down.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but I do know that he was really bad in finals before. And then suddenly started winning everything indoors. He lost the first 6 of his 7 finals that he played on the ATP level, and then after that, now he has 8 titles. That is crazy. 8 titles already for Bublik, and 4 of them this year, and of course, 2 Halle titles, and so he's really coming to good in these finals. And then also these last 3 tournaments that he's won, he's only played 1 player in the top 75, but yet he's winning all of these matches, and that didn't used to happen before. Like he used to lose. He used to lose to guys way lower ranked than him, and now that he's actually beating them reliably and more consistently, I think that's a big story. Because, yeah, like now you look at it, like Felix 10th in the race, and Bublik is 12th, and it's like, he could, like, if it started tomorrow, he would be like one of the 2 alternates for the ATP finals. And like, with the rest of the indoor tournaments coming up, like with Antwerp and like Basel and these kind of tournaments, like you would expect Bublik to do well now, and we'll see if he's looking at the race and if he feels like there's some pressure, like there was some expectations going into him at Wimbledon. So I'm curious to see how he handles that again in the bigger matches now.
Just thinking about who's ahead of him. Excuse me. Obviously Djokovic and Draper.
I think Rublev is 11th. Felix is
Vansh
10th.
already took up Djokovic as well, which
Okay.
is undecided, let's say. But
Yeah,
he's
that's
just
true.
signed
Because
up.
Djokovic, he's just signed up for Shanghai, so I don't know whether he will play the ATP finals, but
yeah, last year he didn't play, but it's possible he will change his mind for this season.
he
So
might.
number 10 or number 9 will likely be the most, like the defining spot. It's tough. Like, I think people sometimes really don't take into consideration that 400 points is no joke. Like, you actually need to make deep runs. It's not like Bublik can just roll into the ATP finals now, but it's a possibility that certainly was not there for him in the past years of his career.
Damien, do you remember that shot I'm talking about when he's kind of on top of the net and he uses his hand?
I mean, I wouldn't say that was a turning point because that was so long ago.
I'm probably clutching there.
The turnaround didn't really start until, like maybe this spring. Some people are pointing to the Joao Fonseca loss in Phoenix as a potential turning point.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna mention Phoenix because that's where he made the racket switch, right? He switched to a Yonex and.
Yeah, but not even that. Like, I actually don't mind the logic because when you remember how he was behaving in the Sinner US Open match, and he was kind of like, I'm not even playing that bad. You're amazing. And you could argue that he actually didn't really give the best effort there in the 90-minute loss.
I
and
saw
I would probably
tweeting about that.
Yeah, but like you have the Fonseca match, which was kind of similar because I think he was talking a lot during that match, to just like people at the venue or whatever, to the microphones. I don't know to what, but basically like, you're 18, like how can you be this good or something like that. So I think in some ways, maybe that and maybe some other losses. I think he lost to Menchik around that time too. You just kind of maybe think that Bublik might have just stopped and thought, okay, so like I'm 27 or whatever. These guys are already there. Like if I'm ever going to beat them again, I have to just dedicate myself a bit more fully. I think also he himself has pointed to his family a few times, right? That now he kind of has a bit more to, like he cares a bit more because he's kind of playing for his kid as well. So I think it's been a mindset change. I wouldn't maybe go as far as some people on Twitter are putting it in terms of just like completely, pointing to that Fonseca loss or something like that. But it could be part of the process that he just kind of realized that if he doesn't start dedicating himself fully, he might at some point simply be like overtaken and just become completely irrelevant.
I think he himself has pointed to the loss in Indian Wells, and doesn't he go for some nights out in Las Vegas or something and decide?
Yeah. He went and partied in Vegas after he lost to Watanuki in Indian Wells. And then at that point he thought about quitting because he was like, if I continue like this, I'll be outside the top 100, and I don't think I have the dedication to play a ton of challengers and come back. And then he makes that final in Phoenix, and then I think he started to realize like, okay, I'm not that far off in terms of,
Listen, I know what happens.
Now.
I know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but maybe he puked there too. Maybe there is a post-puke Bublik narrative to find out about, but I guess we'll never know. All right, what about his opponent today, Damien Royer? I don't know. I was going to say it's a run from nowhere, but that's probably a bit harsh because he's really climbed the rankings this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's still somewhat out of nowhere, I'd say, especially the Rublev win. I don't know. I mean, I have very mixed feelings because before this season, it was like Royer had zero hype. Nobody was talking about him. I remember being even like frustrated about it sometimes. You tweet about Valentin Royer and nobody cared. But I still didn't think he was like this good. I was thinking he's a bit underrated, might make, I don't know, top 150, something like that. But yeah, then he obviously goes on a crazy run around February, April. 6 challenger semis in a row, I think, 14 matches in a row at some point, the 2 Kigali titles and then Zadar. And, it's not like he didn't slow down a little bit when he actually got to the tour. But now also making this run, I mean, there's really nothing wrong that he did in the final too. Both of them saved 2 breakpoints each, I think. Bublik really couldn't crack him at all, even though I thought that maybe, because Royer, again, it's not really an opponent at like Bublik's level. He's kind of predictable, I think, as well, compared to Bublik especially. But I was just like, what is he going to surprise Bublik with? But he didn't really need to surprise him with anything, right? I mean, he was just literally serving great and playing very aggressively after that. Both of them were like completely evenly matched on the day, besides the tie breaks. So yeah, just a great run that isn't exactly out of nowhere. I mean, it's not the biggest event in the world, of course, Hangzhou 250, but he did beat Rublev along the way. He did beat like Lerner Tien, going from the qualies as well. Of course, it's a pretty stunning run. Just Bublik has been so good at converting these 250s into titles recently that you don't really feel like it was that close. But actually, I mean, if you look at the match, it's just a couple of points.
Vanch, we occasionally have a subject that appears, which is Medvedev or Tsitsipas. Which one is in a deeper malaise or rut, or who should we be more concerned for? Could we include Rublev in that conversation, or is he still a little bit not quite in the absolute rut that I think the other two players are?
I think because those other two players have had higher highs, and because they've just achieved more in their career in general, I don't think it's as big of a drop off for Andre, especially because he made quarters in the Masters events leading up to the US Open. He kind of has become like, but he used to get to the quarters. He's now instead of being a 5 through 8 guy, he's more of a 9 through 12 guy. So I don't think it's like a massive drop off. He's still 11th. He's not as reliable in these 250s though. Like these tournaments, he was winning very regularly in like 2020, 2021. Even 500s and 250s. But now I just think he's more susceptible to some of these earlier losses against peaking players. But still, like he can easily go tomorrow in Beijing or like in Shanghai, and he can make the quarters and semis, and it wouldn't surprise anyone.
Sure.
Yeah, and to tie it into with Turin again, right? I mean, 5 years in a row he made it. Right now, very much in doubt, and that already kind of shows you that he's declined. But I think Vansh is perfectly right that because the expectations just aren't that high for him, like nobody ever expected Rublev to be winning slams really. So yeah, it's the drop off is bigger for Tsitsipas and Medvedev. They've become like a lot more irrelevant than they were before. Rublev, on the other hand, the drop-off is just a little bit more mild. Perhaps we were also more ready for it because 2024 already there were doubts that we hadn't had about Rublev before. Of course, kind of covered up by the two big achievements in Monte Carlo and Montreal.
Yeah, normally at the end of the ATP finals, well, WTA finals too, but ATP finals, there's like, who's going to be here next year? And, you sort of have a long punt on someone. I remember once suggesting Jack Draper might be an alternate. I think that was probably in 2023, looking towards 2024. And Rublev was certainly probably number one on the list, I guess, of all the players that made it there last year. Maybe Casper Ruud too would have been higher.
Was probably there too, yeah.
Yeah,
not last year in their careers, but like just that next year, they might not.
Maybe de Minaur as well. Maybe we thought that he might have peaked last year, but he's probably had an even better 2025 and 2024.
Questionable, but yeah, pretty much the same.
Yeah, about the same.
All right. Fair enough. Any more stories that either of you think we should touch on from Hangzhou?
I just love Nurlan saying that he's starting his own YouTube thing, the Ramazanov show. By the way, Yibing Wu, Daniel Medvedev, shortlisted for matches of the year.
Yeah. I was going to mention that was that was a really, really good match. Like, I don't know, and for a year where we haven't had like amazing matches, like outside of the, like it's not been like a banner year for that. Like, it might be on the list. Yeah.
What was special about it, Damien?
I mean, everything. I don't know. It's just Yibing Wu. Like, whenever he plays, it's special. And when we also get drama like this, hometown hero as well, obviously the crowd is fully into it. I also like the entire story of this rivalry building up. 2022 US Open, that was their third round. And, the match is, like, if you look at the scoreboard, it doesn't seem close. And it kind of wasn't. But it's not like he cannot keep up with Medvedev. He's just like usually just going to make that error. Like he's going to make the final, shots. He's not going to make the final shot. I mean, in a combination, because Daniil was so good at that time, at least as a defender, as a counter puncher, whatever. And then, of course, after the match, Medvedev has had a lot to say as well about Yibing Wu. I mean, basically what everybody with ice is saying about him, that, well, the guy is insanely like naturally gifted. They also played in Washington recently, and it kind of had a similar feeling, actually. So just like stylistically, you wouldn't have the idea that he will probably beat Daniil here. Medvedev, yes, he's a bit up and down now. Like every single match he joins some like 50-50 on whether he's going to win or lose. I just don't feel like I have any idea anymore. But of course, he's also serving for it. It's over 3 hours. The points are spectacular because they kind of have to be with this contrast of styles and also the shot making from Wu. So yeah, I think it deserves to get a mention. I honestly don't really remember like which other classics we've had this season, but I would 100% put it into the conversation. The problem I have with takes like that, I don't know which match it was that it was made after or during, the fact that Medvedev should have changed his coach earlier. Somebody also texted that to me after Medvedev defeated Basavaredi and was like, oh, that probably was a good decision. And I said, yeah, I agree, but this is not based on this match at all. Like, how can you base it on a match where Nisha Basavaredi just literally is lacking like any power to hit through Daniil and he's like not pressured at all? And then Medvedev loses to Wu. And I just think it's a good showcase that like reactionary takes like that, a coaching change, it needs a while to actually have some sort of an impact, unless it's that early boost that we were talking about earlier. But yeah, I mean, let's be cautious. Let's be cautious with announcing that Daniil Medvedev is back. I'll even go much further and say that unless he wins, like, I don't know, Paris or something like that, I can only say he's back if he makes a Grand Slam run, because what he did at the Slams this year, I mean, I'm sure he also considers it like unacceptable. So unless he has an Australian Open run, I will be very cautious with saying that Daniil Medvedev is back.
Of course, Medvedev was serving for the match. In fact, but I think he went quickly love 30 down, so I don't think he had any match points, right, Vanch?
No match points
in that match. Yeah.
But it has been just so stark. The decline is just crazy because he's played he's already lost 19 times this year, and he's lost like to 20 different players basically, like since the start of the ATP finals. And just the one match win in the majors, and even in that, he almost lost to a guy outside the top 400. So
then again, he's 29. Maybe we're just expecting too much. Usually this is where tennis players start declining. The big three didn't, but I don't know. There's also
his biggest strength,
like Wawrinka, Cilic. I don't know, but
like the physicality was the biggest strength, right? Like he would just be a human backboard from the back
for
from
him,
the baseline, and you don't feel like that anymore. He's kind of lost that identity as like being this indestructible like defender from the baseline who's just gonna go toe to toe with anyone and just not miss. Like he doesn't have that quality about him anymore. And like the service
doesn't that again kind of work with the fact that he's 29?
Yeah, because once the physicality goes, you're like, oh, you don't really have a whole lot else like off the ground. So
like he's not a guy who's gonna go into his 40s. Like it's impossible. Wawrinka can do it just based on like, I don't know, the short slice, the serve being so huge. Medvedev, yeah, sure, the serve will still be okay, but he actually has issues with that despite his size. And then after that, like when he's 40, he will be like just a shell of a tennis player. Yeah. So like for him, obviously the clock has to be a little shorter. Like the time that he has on the tour is shorter than for some other players like Cilic, Wawrinka, and the likes. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I hope that it's not like this short. I hope that it's not over yet. But it also wouldn't be shocking if maybe this is just literally like 90% physical. I don't know.
Yeah. I wonder, Ghosty, if Team was in that conversation, or does he not count as part of that generation, perhaps because he's a couple of years older? But yeah, they just didn't produce. I think I saw bits of it from what Gil was saying. I think they were all the narrative was that they were all sort of waiting and expecting the big three to fall off and then they would pounce. But they just kept going, the big three, and their time never really came. And that was their time. I mean, I'm thinking of Tsitsipas 2021 in particular as being a line in the sand. But yeah, anything to add on that, Vanch, or anything else from Hangzhou?
No, not really.
No Bannon Nakashima link somehow to anything we've just said?
No, we got that done with.
I think you're right. All right, listen, let's get to it. I've switched my mic, so hopefully you can still hear me okay. But this one is fully charged, but it needs to be because we're going to be talking about the Laver Cup, which was won by Team World, I think 15 points to 9. It was sort of in the balance, but was really day 2 where I think everything changed. Is that right, Vanch?
Yeah, normally everything in this competition falls on day 2 and 3, especially day 3 with all the matches being 3 points each. But day 2 was really where, you saw Team World just sweep it. I mean, none of the matches went to even a 10-point tiebreak, and it was all straight sets. Mostly it was, Alex de Minaur and Taylor Fritz that really sort of stepped up, and they won the important singles matches. Obviously, de Minaur against Zverev, he just played very smart. He used the slice. He came forward. He just put Zverev in so many uncomfortable positions near the net, and then also he just returned great, and he didn't allow Zverev. It was they were playing on a really slow, low bouncing court, so all that variety and all that sort of attritional style that Alex is known for, that just worked so well in the matchup that it may not have at different other parts of their careers when Zverev was more confident, and also if they're playing on a different surface. But nonetheless, Alex and Taylor with also just how vocal Andre Agassi was on the bench, and how much just playing at home, and just all the factors just made it so that it was going to be really hard for Team Europe to come back on day 3. They'd have to win all 4 of their matches, and you just knew that de Minaur and Fritz were going to be more reliable on the final day, and they were just going to keep that momentum up. And Team Europe did win 2 more matches in day 3, but it just, when you knew that the final match came down to Fritz versus Zverev, you just had.
Yeah, how did Europe get into that position, in terms of choosing players and stuff?
Well, I guess so what happened is that the captains choose their players that they want to play on day 2. So Europe went on day 2, and Yannick Noah and Team Europe came up with the names, and then based on that, then Team World goes, okay, we're going to put these players on our lineup, and then the same thing happens on Sunday, which is that Agassi chooses.
So that's a disadvantage for Europe, right? If they're naming their players first, is that not disadvantage for Europe to name their players first?
Yeah,
it is. So that's how it works on Saturday and Sunday. They rotate it, and
that's not based on who won it last year or anything like that? No.
I think it's just one time each, and it's not. I think it's just decided beforehand. I don't think there's a specific rule.
Okay. Because I'm just wondering how on earth Europe managed to find themselves in a position of putting Zverev up against Fritz, particularly in what turned out to be the last
also
match.
What I saw Gil tweet about, and I also wondered the same thing, was that Zverev, he needed 2 back injections just to even play in this tournament. And obviously we saw him struggle a lot against Alcaraz in Cincinnati, where he finished the match and he wasn't 100%. US Open, he was sort of not really 100%, I think, either. So the fact that he put himself up and was like, okay, I'm going to play this anyway. It's I don't understand why they didn't just go with someone different, like a Runa or a Ruud. They would have had a better chance against this version of Taylor than the level that Zverev was playing at this weekend. But so that really sort of surprised me, because his serve speeds were way down, even in the de Minaur match and at the start of the Fritz match. And Fritz just has his number generally right now, so it just didn't make that much sense to me why Zverev was the chosen player. Now, he did actually make a good match out of it. He did actually fight really hard in the second set. He almost came back, but still, I never got the feeling that he was going to win at any point. So
I see Agassi in the last sort of 6 months in particular, since he's made a few media appearances and seems to be a bit more present in tennis now more than before. And now, of course, maybe that's linked to him obviously being a captain at the Laver Cup. I see him getting lots and lots of praise. I wonder, though, if it's a little bit of, people I don't really see anything from Agassi myself that is exactly revolutionary. I think, you or I could be the captain of either of these 2 nations, or these 2, that's actually a problem, but we'll come to that in a minute. Even these 2 representations, and we may well win it for Team World or for Team Europe. Of course, we're not going to inspire in the way that Agassi might, but I'm just a bit curious about all this love for Agassi. I know Vanch has been a part of the love for Agassi in particular this year, and was extolling the virtues of a chest bump between him and Cerundolo over the last few days, but also some of the comments that he's been making in the media. And I'm not sure if I buy into it. I don't know if that's making any sense, Damien.
You buy into what?
So there's a narrative that there's this, he's sort of a sage of tennis, and that he's, look at the way he's describing the backhand from X player, and we've never seen that kind of analysis before. I didn't quite view it in the same lens.
I mean, my Laver Cup knowledge over the weekend, like, it's obviously just based on clips, but I've seen Andre Agassi talking tennis before. I don't know. He obviously was a player who kind of revolutionized the game, especially with his return style. But yeah, I think he's a fine addition. Borg McEnroe it used to be, and Borg kind of did nothing because that's his personality. So I think Andre and Yannick Noah, of course, that's also a fine contrast. And as you said, like, I don't think ultimately it matters that much. Like, the captain is also another part of the tournament, more so in the fact that they have to be a well-known name just to like drive more interest. And you have all these moments, like players from different generations combining their joining forces, and I don't know, just potentially having these fun moments on the bench. That's something you're never gonna get anywhere else. You're not going to have, I don't know, Joao Fonseca interacting with Andre Agassi, really nowhere else. So I think it's one of the parts of the event that kind of has to be like accentuated. So that's why we're not the captains. But I do agree that ultimately the job is also like not that important. These players could very well just like sit on the bench there together. Very often they do join the conversation as well in terms of talking tactics, talking strategy. I haven't really seen enough to kind of have an idea on how it went for Andre as a whole, but he definitely has like involved himself a bit more recently in the tennis world, the commentary gigs and everything, the coaching as well, sporadically in the last few years. There used to be a time when both he and Steffi were just like literally sitting, in their backyard and I don't know, just playing tennis together a little bit, but not really trying to go out into the media world. Now, of course, Steffi still is pretty quiet, but Andre is for sure taking a different approach right now. And yeah, I mean, it's nice to see him there. He's obviously a major character, won a lot, but also has that personality to him. And by the way, Nurlan, to your question, which Ghosty was also very interested in, yes, Polish grammar is extremely hard. I think mostly I would say it's down to the conjugation and something we call deklinacja in Poland, which I think is declension or something like that in English. And basically that means that like verbs and nouns, they have 100 different forms. And that's something that English does not really have at all. So I think compared to English, yes, Polish grammar is extremely tough to learn. So you have the sounds that are tough to learn for a foreigner and also the grammar. So I don't recommend it.
All right, let's come to this, which I think could nicely lead us into a sort of broader look at the Laver Cup. Laver Cup has a conceptualization problem. Some see the vision, others don't. I think that if I try to understand this point a little bit anyway, in terms of, well, I think one of the concept issues is, and I even we touched on it before we went live, is the rest of the world. I mentioned in our WhatsApp chat an identity issue regarding the Laver Cup. Now that is also related, of course, to whether it's an exhibition or not. Where, of course, the people, the organizers, the founders, Roger Federer among them, of course, want to make sure that this is not. And I think every year I see a real concerted effort to show and to extol the virtues of how everyone's trying so hard and how much it means to them. I would say on the flip side, I don't think I've seen a racket smash or a tear at all in the 8 years. And I think if I did, I would find it a little bit forced. I could be wrong. I still do. I'm on the side of seeing this as more of an exhibition. I mean, I even saw, for example, clips being put out of Carlos Alcaraz turning the TV off as Team World was celebrating. I think all the players here want to win their matches. Ultimately, is it a big deal regarding their careers? Almost certainly no. Should it count towards the head-to-heads? I mean, I'm going to share a head-to-head right now on the screen. Absolutely not. Should they have changed it retrospectively? Well, of course, that's even more insane. I also think in terms of the concept as well, and we'll come to you first, Vanch, on this. Rest of the world, is that an identity? I don't know if I mean, of course, it is also an issue in terms of where the players are coming from. The qualification process for this is kind of done more on an exhibition basis than obviously in terms of how the players are performing at the time. Musetti's decision, of course, to focus on the ATP finals. We saw Musetti crying when he loses that final today. I don't think he would have been crying if he'd have been on the end of a Laver Cup defeat. Thoughts, Vanch?
Yeah, I mean, it does try to sort of be wishy-washy in the middle. It doesn't really have an identity in terms of, like, it is just like kind of in its own separate bucket. You know, you have the tour events, you have the slams, you have other team events, and then this is just kind of on an island on its own. Like, obviously, it is annoying that they retroactively added this to head-to-heads and all of that. But you know, there's something about the competition that just it brings so many people in. Like, maybe it's just the fact that you're playing for legends and you're playing for, like, you have this idea of like all these people on the bench that you're normally like competitors with, and you're normally like, you know, trying to steal titles from them, and now they're part of the same team. So you do get this like amazing, you know, fan interaction. It's all about like the conversations on the bench, the sort of, you know, the content that comes out of it, and the TV quality and production and all of that is certainly top class. So if it is an exhibition, I think people get like offended when you say exhibition. It's like, oh no, like, so you think this is not important. Like, suddenly the knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, but the players care so much and all of that. And like, I think all of that is mostly true, Gail Monfils aside that 1 year actually. But aside from that, I think that was the one time where we were like, okay, like people are confused about this. But for the most part, like, I think Roger, like, he made that pretty clear in 2017, 2018, that like, okay, this is not like a hidden giggle. Like, we are actually going to like try really hard. This isn't like, you know, an exhibition in December or something like that. And so from that standpoint, I think most of the players do treat it like that way. Also, just because it does count in the head-to-head, they know that now. And so I think that's like even more of an added incentive. But mostly, I don't think it takes the players that much to start caring and trying, because you know, they're all really competitive anyway, and they're just, you know, they don't want to let their team down, and it doesn't take a whole lot. And then when you see Rod Laver, you see Roger Federer, you see everyone else, like it adds that little bit of extra pressure that you wouldn't want. That, you know, maybe I've seen nerves, like I've seen them get really, really tight and nervous that they maybe wouldn't even in an ATP final. So like in terms of that, like, but the stakes, I do feel like the stakes are a little bit sort of manufactured. Like, you're not gonna say that you're a 2-time Laver Cup champion on your CV, for example. Whereas Davis Cup, it does have like hundreds of years of tradition. But who knows? Maybe like this will be up there someday. It's kind of in the same category as Davis Cup. Like, you do have your coach on the bench. You do have like, you know, this sort of country versus country thing. I mean, that sort of thing is very arbitrary. Like, I don't think people watch this tournament and they're like, I'm going to root for Team Europe, or I'm going to root for Team World. Like, they're more just rooting for their favorite player, and they're more just rooting for a matchup to happen. Like, a lot of people this week wanted Fonseca and Alcaraz, and that makes sense. So like, from that standpoint, I do still think it has a place on tour. I like the concept of it being this 3 days, it moving to a different location every time, it being something that, you know, some of the players, I do think they are dependent on getting the top players though. Like, if Sinner and Alcaraz didn't play this going forward, like, it would lose some interest.
It's over. Like, they need to get with the current tennis ecosystem, they have to get Sinner or Alcaraz. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. But yeah, I don't mind this being on the tour at all. I think Vanch touched
Whereas
on a lot of points.
No other event dies, really. I mean, it might do over the course of a few years, but no other event dies without Sinner or Alcaraz. But yeah,
definitely not. I mean, your space on the calendar is a lot more fixed, for other events, which is why I also think the Alcaraz Fonseca thing was just, a major opportunity miss marketing wise. But anyway, yeah, that's not the most important part. Exhibition or not, I don't think it really detracts from the event whatsoever, but it's always a big topic. You mentioned the Auger-Aliassime Monfils debacle, and how kind of you saw exactly these two viewpoints that like people are clashing on social media. Like, they also were there for the players, right? One thought that this has to be super serious, and the other was like, man, I'm 38, I'm 50 in the world. Like, I wasn't invited for my tennis skills, I was invited for the fact that I'm an entertainer. And yeah, that kind of shows that there is a problem with a bit of like that identity thing. Exhibition, like, for me, is only like something that doesn't have ranking points or some other very important stake, which is I know this is not a definition that is fixed then, because you can say, oh, is the Olympics an exhibition? No, because the Olympic medal is so much tradition and everything. So I think the Davis Cup is indeed the best comparison that we have for this. I think it's slightly easier for both the players and the viewers to get into Davis Cup because it's nation versus nation rather than Europe against the world. I mean, especially the rest of the world is not really a thing that somebody can like actually get behind, you know, as a fan and be like, oh my, I want Timor to win. Team Europe maybe a little bit more. I've actually even said in the past, like I'm pretty much a federalist in terms of Europe and, you know, my attitude towards European Union, but still I don't care if Team Europe wins. I really don't give a damn. I think that some of my friends even laughed at me in the past. We had long discussions when I said that I think I was maybe a little bit more developed as a person because of being European than because of being Polish. I think with the way that we're integrated right now, that's kind of true for me personally, but it doesn't mean that I will be rooting for Team Europe. And I am also one of these people who indeed watched Laver Cup mostly for one player. Like when Federer was playing, I was watching the event, his matches, but not really anything else. And whereas I obviously cared if Roger was going to beat Kyrgios, Querrey, and Isner and whoever he played there, I cared a lot in these matches. Like I definitely did not want him to lose. For me, this was just like any other event. But then in terms of the entire tournament, like no, like as long as he's winning his singles matches, I don't really care. Like they can lose all the remaining ones. Team World can take the title. I don't mind. So yeah, I think the stakes is basically still the biggest difference between this and a proper tour event. I think for me, it's also the thing that like drives me away from the event. Not because I wouldn't enjoy watching it, because I probably would. I just think, let's say in a fixed week, I have just like a set number of hours I can dedicate to watching tennis. And then I just prefer the things with the stakes. And for me, even the stakes in like a 15K ITF qualifying match are bigger. The players are fighting for something that will in some way either slow down their progress or maybe speed it up, or maybe just they get to another ranking level, they get more prize money and everything. And here we're talking about players who, like, in terms of prize money, it doesn't influence them that much. I am one of these people who will say, well, if you have 50 million, I don't care if you have 51 or 49. And basically, yeah, that's kind of what it is in a way. That for me, I just don't feel like these matches are impactful enough for the players' careers. Of course, they can be big confidence-wise. I don't doubt that. But, you know, I'm fine just like knowing the results and that's it, really. But yeah, I mean, I don't hate the event. I think I don't know if I'm going to say that it should be on the calendar, but I'm definitely fine with it being there. Glad that it has its enjoyers. I don't think it ruins the calendar in any way either. It's played alongside 250s. You know, as long as the players are still getting in time for like Beijing and Tokyo, who cares? I don't see what exactly is like the disadvantage of having an event like that in the world of tennis. I would even go as far as saying that there are simply none.
Yeah, I'm okay with it being on the calendar, and I think interestingly as well, people get annoyed with each other. So there's a group of people that don't like it, and they're annoyed with the other people that do like it, which is a weird sort of fight to have in a way. You know, you would never have an argument over someone who prefers Mars to Snickers, although maybe those debates do go on. I'm just not a party to them. And then the other way around, you know, the people that love it get annoyed with the people that don't. You should like this, you know. Just enjoy it. If you enjoy it, great. If you don't, that's okay. I think most of the arguments I've heard so far are pretty reasonable. I think there's an interesting thing to highlight in terms of its history, because again, when I was touching on its identity the other day, you know, I heard James in our chat bring some star power to the conversation, and I'm okay with that. But that's not an identity for me. History is a huge element to it, and so then when we look at the Ryder Cup, which is obviously the where this sort of concept comes from in many respects, the Ryder Cup, of course, began as, I don't know if you guys know this, it used to be just Britain against the US. That was the Ryder Cup for, I don't know, 75 or 100 years, but a very long time. But
that's
the
important
US was just
people,
insanely,
actually, yeah.
Right, that's so in fact this other concept has gone the other extreme, beginning with rest of the world, and then we'll maybe potentially, if we did want to change the concept of it, narrow it down. But because basically the US was always winning, they just decided to go, well, you know what, let's balance things up a bit. Europe, in terms of size and in terms of population, is a lot fairer mix. And probably at that point as well, and maybe still is the case, you do see a real balance to it. And it's every 2 years as well. So a lot of other factors and they absolutely care. And having the Ryder Cup on your CV, good news for Colin Montgomery, it does matter because it's the only basically big thing that he has on his CV. And the way the players react in the Ryder Cup environment, including, for example, Colin Montgomery, who would crack under that individual pressure of trying to win a major, would respond in a positive manner as a leader and in fact win these tournaments. It just has a very different feeling and a very different dynamic. And the Europeans, I don't think it has diluted them caring. I would still say that they care just as much as the British did historically. And the British, of course, still make up a large part of the Ryder Cup teams in terms of captains, but also significant players, Nick Faldo, among others, and so on. And there is a huge amount of emotion, and we see it on the greens when they win or lose the Ryder Cup, and also the backlash particularly in the US, because of course with that identity that's there, less so in Europe. There might be some individual focus on the captain's decisions, which can be huge, but the backlash, particularly in the US when they lose Ryder Cups, is phenomenal. It's front page news at times, whereas I think the Laver Cup will never get to that for one reason or another, some of which we've touched on already.
Yeah. I do think also the average fan like just sees like, oh, Roger Federer's behind this. Oh, it must be amazing. Let's go watch. And also like if they're in a city where they don't get a ton of tennis, like they're really attracted to it. They are just like, okay, this is like, you can take someone who doesn't follow tennis and you'll get like shorter matches. You'll get like, really good content. You'll get like, so I can see the appeal of it for people like outside our tennis bubble.
And that was part of the idea, right? Like to move it around. But I think now they're actually going to be coming back to like the more traditional venues.
I hate that. That tells me that there's been some kind of like revenue fallout because like
yes, and that's exactly what I read. That's exactly what I read. That basically the revenue last couple of years. Well, I don't think they had the 2025 data yet, but 2022 was a profitable year.
2023 was the worst sell. Like that was
2022 was profitable. 2023 and 24 were not. And potentially some of these costs are basically because you have to move all that entire infrastructure as well, right? I don't know, all the like logos and brand stuff and everything. So I think that because of that, they are moving to London in 2026, which kind of goes against what the event was supposed to be. Like, because it was supposed to bring the events, the top quality tennis, the star players to places where tennis maybe isn't, I don't know, 3 times a year. There were some interesting locations, like, I don't know, Vancouver, right? Berlin, maybe you could argue, was also at the time at least not. Not the city where
Boston was another one where they don't get a ton of tennis.
Boston, that was a good one too. So I think it would maybe be great in the long run to kind of come back to that idea. But then again, if it's not bringing in the revenue, and this is another thing, like there are so many tournaments on the ATP Tour, WTA Tour, which just can survive while not being profitable. And this basically has to be. And they really rely on getting the best players. The year they're not going to get Alcaraz or Sinner unless somebody else really pops up as a contender to them. It's kind of not going to work. This year was already very questionable because you get like Mikkelsen, Opelka on the team. It just doesn't sound like the biggest possible sell. Maybe in the States. Okay, it was in the States, but still.
But something else that did come out of it that I thought was interesting was the Federer interview that he did with Andy Roddick. And he was basically asked, like, okay, Sinner and Alcaraz are the 2 best players right now. Like, what do you think?
That's a serious question going forward.
What are your thoughts on that? Like, and are you surprised at how they've taken the baton? And he basically was like, he started talking about how the fact that they're meeting so often and how they're playing.
This may be the biggest backlash of all.
And so basically his point was that surfaces are homogenized today in a way that you can essentially play the same way that you can on clay, grass, and hard, which I agree with him about that because, like, you go back 20 years ago and like Bjorn Borg and Sampras and in that time, like grass was a lot faster, clay was a lot slower. So you basically had to change your game up to work on to work well and win tournaments on the different surfaces. Like that part, I very much agree with. But then he said the tournament directors are slowing down surfaces just because they're like, oh, you don't want to risk not having a Sinner Alcaraz final. The thing is that most of the hardcore tournaments these days, like they're pretty quick. They're pretty medium.
Yeah, I
fast
think
to
that
quick.
used to be the case. Like that used to be the case when he was playing, especially in that
Yes.
super slow era, like the early 2010s. And Roger isn't around right now. Like he's watching the tournaments, but it's not that clear that these aren't slowed down. I think the development of the game also in terms of technology and how the players are physically, like the sheer speed, intensity, physicality of the game, like it's never been higher. And that also basically brings it back to that early 2010s era, even though the balls and the courts are faster than they were before then. So I think the game is kind of similar in terms of its, I don't know, speed or length of the rallies right now, but that's not because of the reason he gave. So, I did see a lot of criticism for him, for that statement.
Yeah, I think criticism was a little too much because he did make a good point about homogenization, but I do think
it's an opinion, like what are you criticizing the guy for?
Yeah. It was true. Like if you had said all this stuff and it was 2017, 2018, I would have been like, 100%. Like Roger, you're totally right. Like this is exactly how it is. But I do think it's changed in the last 3, 4, 5 years where
it's changed because it had to. Because like if we stayed with the courts from the early 2010s in the current state of the game, in how physical and quick the players are, they would literally just like die in every single match. Like they literally, their bodies would not hold up. So they actually had to speed up the courts a little bit, both for entertainment and both for like preserving the players, really. So I don't think what he said is true right now. It probably was, like mid 2010s, early 2010s. We used to have like, I don't know, the ATP finals, Paris-Bercy being like so slow as well. Now these events are actually so much faster. And the slams as well, right? The US Open used to be like very slow at some point, and now it's much faster too. So I don't think that this is the right opinion.
I got so many people disagreeing with me in the comments. They're like, Miami is fast, Paris is fast, you must be crazy, we're not watching the same tennis. But like Paris last year was lightning quick. Miami the last
they
2,
are
3 years
still living in that era though, from before, right? Like people are also just like treating this as like 5 years ago Paris was slow. So like that they still haven't just, I don't know, they haven't acknowledged it yet. But I think Roger just not being on the tour for the last 3 years simply does not know the state of it as much as even some people who are just like literally watching it every single week do, or maybe not even watching it, but just like checking the stats and everything. I don't know, what did John say before he left?
I think we should do a quick preview of Beijing and Tokyo and then sign off.
Okay. Oh, okay. So he says here he's got to go. Sure. I see it now. We can talk about Beijing and Tokyo a little bit. Ghosty has been like freaking out in the chat a little bit, but I mean, I don't think we've said anything that goes against your points. Like we've actually been very fair towards the Laver Cup. Neither of us has said that it's a horrible event or something like that. Vansh has been really excited about it the entire weekend. I can't quite share that.
I got myself actually enjoying it. Maybe it was just that I was in the same time zone and there were some, interesting clips that I saw on social. But I watched it on and off. I can't say I watched it first ball to last. Absolutely not. But the parts that I did see, I had a good time. I had fun. And for me, it's just that. It's just fun entertainment, really.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that basically Ghosty is reacting like that, because I think we've been very fair and just I don't know, not even critical towards the Laver Cup. So I think maybe you came in with the idea that we were gonna attack it, but we haven't at all. Like I definitely remember Ghosty's stance towards the Laver Cup. I was even going to make the joke if I was going to be here with John as just alone, that basically we're definitely not the best duo to do it because of Ghosty's very differing idea. But no, I mean, I think today we've definitely not been critical at all. Also, Matthew had some question before we start talking about Beijing and Tokyo. RG was dominated. I mean, it's not like a question. It's actually just the fact that obviously even the guys who were winning Roland Garros at the time, they weren't even playing Wimbledon Thomas Muster doesn't have a single win at Wimbledon. He only played it 4 times. So yeah, it was very different. And a lot of that is the homogenization of surfaces, which some people hate as a term, but it happened. It just didn't happen in the last 5 years. It happened 10, 15 years ago, or even further than that. Wimbledon changed the grass as well in 2002, which had a massive impact. Federer won the first of his 8 Wimbledon titles, 7 volleying on like 50% of the points. And then even the year after, he 7 volleyed like 5% or 10%, I think. So yeah, it did change so much. Like the tennis that we're seeing, especially at Wimbledon right now in the second weeks of the tournament, like it would not be possible in the 90s. But that's actually good. Like even though I like fast-paced tennis, just try popping into a match from the 90s at Wimbledon, or I don't know, maybe even the Ivanisevic after final. Yeah, it's just unwatchable. It's just unwatchable from like the modern day perspective. It's borderline unwatchable, and I think it's good we scrap that. I'm gonna like put the draws maybe on in a second, but maybe for now you can just talk about the fact that last year we had the Sinner Alcaraz final in Beijing. Well, I can't say one of the best matches of all time, but definitely the best match of last season. And now they're actually splitting up, right? One of them is going to play Tokyo, one is going to play Beijing.
Yep. Now we have sort of a Harley Quinn situation where they each play their own 500 before meeting up again in Shanghai. So yeah, we won't have that Sinner Alcaraz final for this one, but yeah, of course, last year was basically, Carlos coming off of the team events and then Sinner's first tournament back, and also the same week that he had got the Wada thing, right? Like, was that the same week? Yeah, it was the same week where I think Wada released that he's gonna have a hearing and all that. So, but then nonetheless, they met in the final and then they played this epic match. That was probably the best match last year. So
easily. So yeah, let's talk about Beijing first, and we obviously have Jannik Sinner as the top seed, the finalist from last year, the champion from 2 years ago, and I mean, just as usual, like, is there anybody here that you think that can stop Jannik Sinner?
No, but the idea of peak Marin Cilic maybe showing up for one match and pushing Sinner, that sounds exciting. At least like that's somebody with a really high ceiling who can just surprise you. So, I mean, has he been in good form? No, not at all, really, since Wimbledon. But
do you see the draw right now or not? Because no. Okay, no.
I see it now. Yeah.
Just get away, the producer. I'll do it. You're messing
actually,
up
as far as like Sinner matches go and players being competitive against him, like this is actually let's say a draw that you could see Sinner like will have to be sharp early because Cilic and then Zhizhen Zhang and potentially Fabian Morozhan and really just Morozhan, honestly, in that list. But like the first match.
I'm gonna do that again, Vansh, unfortunately. I'm gonna again say Cilic? No, just no.
I know
I already said that at Wimbledon. And Jack was so nervous in that match. But credit to Marin, I obviously love him and he did so well. Jacques does not have a bye, Ghosty, a qualifier he's going to play. This is not a bye. Qualifying in Beijing will finish tomorrow, and Tokyo has already finished its qualifying today. So in Tokyo, we will have the qualifiers. In Beijing, they're starting the main draw a day later. Anyway, I don't think Marin Cilic will touch Jannik Sinner. I just hasn't played anything recently. There's no momentum. There's no form. Last week,
but do you honestly think Cilic is one of those players that needs like momentum? Like I do genuinely think he can just show up and just play really well.
Yeah, but not against Jannik.
Yeah. If this was like the second round or the third round, I would probably say.
What are the serving issues, by the way, for Sinner?
Oh, just like his low first serve percentage during the US Open.
Okay,
yes. They're probably talking about that, and probably you've seen videos of him on Twitter where he's been serving a lot.
I haven't, but that's fair. Yeah.
So,
I mean, he does go for a very aggressive first serve strategy, just like super flat a lot of the time. Definitely not landing it too much. We'll see if he can do that, with as much power, but kind of more consistently. But yeah, I'm just pretty much of the idea that nobody can beat Yannick here. Yeah, Marozsan, I'd like to see that match, but it's like 1 out of 10 times with Fabi, right? You're gonna get 10 matches of his against the top guys where he's like not touching them, but then again, you're gonna have that Alcaraz Rome performance.
If this was a little quicker, this court, Chilich like on a grass or really fast hard court, like I think he'd have more of a chance. I still do think he can win some games, make it interesting for a bit. Maybe Sinner saves a few break points. Like it can be, like think of the match that Alcaraz and Cilic had earlier this year in Doha. It's something like that. No, that was decently competitive, right? It was like a 4-4.
Yeah, it was decent, and it was actually the first match of Cilic's season, I think. So maybe goes into that point that you made, that basically he doesn't need any momentum to perform. I'm pretty random side of the draw here. I mean, you just expect the Minaur to do well here, I guess, with the small shout out to Buyon Chowakete, who was amazing at this event last year, beating Musetti and Rublev.
Yeah.
Of course, Ghosty will also enjoy the reference that he is ethnic Mongolian, and that's why he only has one name. Not in this draw, though, not in how the ATP does it. But yeah, I mean, also nobody who can really touch Sinner, I don't think.
No, and I also don't love I don't like the matchup at all for Menchik and Divinor. Menchik Sinner would be far more interesting as a semifinal, but I just think Alex will be too strong in that, and I think we'll get Divinor Sinner, and I won't watch it.
Let's get Menchik into the quarters first. I mean, I'm not even sure about that. We have a fascinating matchup here with Becci Pericard and Musetti, right? I mean, 4th time already.
I mean, it's not like they've been meeting a lot lately. They just met at the first round of the US Open.
4 times since June last year. So yeah, a fair bit of that. Also a rematch of the Hamburg final between Rublev and Koboli.
Yeah. But fun match there with Rublev Koboli rematch, and then Sorundolo Tien. Yeah,
it was very close to Rublev Tien last year. Last week already, right?
Yeah, this is another one where you're looking at the draw for Andre, and you're like, oh yeah, all these 3 players, they can beat him.
No idea, Ghosty, what ethnicity is GMP. Bublik, though, this is probably the big name here as well. I mean, I have no idea how well he's going to do in back-to-back weeks. Very different quality of the draw than Hangzhou. But yeah, I guess that's the name that kind of can really get you excited about this side of the draw. And speaking of rematches, we're also going to have Medvedev and Nori, of course, which, that was around Garros round 1, which Daniel lost. I think he's like 4-1 against Cameron or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, right now it's just, I don't know.
It's another 50-50 for Medvedev.
Yeah. We're just rolling the dice with him.
But for Medvedev, the good thing is for him anyway, is that he's in Zverev's section. So if he does get to that quarterfinal, he's got that matchup edge, that head-to-head advantage, and this is a good time to catch Zverev because he still looks not in great form at all. So, even though he's like, 3rd in the race because of Australia and...
Yeah, it's just shocking. I know it's already happened last year, but I was just... I had to write down his win-loss record for the year today doing some work. And I was just looking at it and thinking, this is the number 3 in the world. And you compare that to Sinner and Alcaraz. The guy has already lost.
By the way, he must have lost at least 15 matches already. It's
yeah, it's really close to 20. And I was just thinking, wow. I mean, maybe 21 even after Laver Cup. I think it might have been 19 before Laver Cup, and now 21. And I'm just thinking, it's not bad because he still has over 40 wins or something like that, right? He's 47, 21. I don't know.
So it's still a low win rate for him. That's below 70%.
Yeah, but last year he was something like 66-19 maybe or something like that. I'm not sure.
I remember he was 69-21. So he played 90 matches.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, okay, it's not bad, obviously. 45-19, sorry, is his record for the year. So hasn't touched 20 losses yet. But I don't know, you're just looking at that and then you're thinking about Sinner and Alcaraz and it's just night and day.
Yeah.
It's just not really conceivable for me that Carlos or Yannick would lose 20 matches in a season.
No chance.
So yeah,
like,
the
not
unfortunate
even.
part about this draw, I suppose, is that like nobody is in form outside of Sinner, really. Like,
Yeah, as far as form goes, outside of like Minaur, if you count the Laver Cup, and like
yeah,
Yannick, no, I don't really think so. I think Sinner's early struggles will be in the first couple of rounds if he has any.
yeah, I probably put it wrong. Like the players who are in form, they're not that dangerous, and the players who are not, yeah, they are maybe the ones who could touch Yannick in some capacity, but I just don't buy them right now, buy their stock right now. Anyway, Tokyo is the one that Alcaraz is playing. Of course, he won Beijing last year, so for him this is a switch. Probably not conditions that he will be better in, I don't think. But maybe just like Yannick, he's just not really going to have any rivals here because, well, the early draws here, they look pretty good too.
If Tabilo, if Alejandro is able to recover from the high that he's on right now and win his first match, maybe that could be an exciting one in terms of competitiveness. But in this section, I'm like, please give us a first ever Nakashima Alcaraz match. Come on, do it.
I mean, it's not a
2021.
first ever. Yeah.
Yeah,
They've
I mean,
played
they
a
haven't
few
really
times,
played.
right?
Yeah,
Whereas Challenger,
Challenger.
Next Gen Finals, yeah.
Yeah. But since then, yeah. No, not really that much here. Sebastian Baez potentially to below. Tiafo has not been in good form, really. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get to the quarters. Casper Ruud, you're kind of waiting on him to make a run since Madrid. Hasn't really happened. Maybe this is the week. Maybe he can get to the semis here. But you also have Berrettini, Berrettini already played this week, right? So this is going to be a second event back.
Yeah, but the way he played, I mean, he's not winning this tournament or going deep, I don't think. Minaur, I don't know, maybe he can beat, but it's just, yeah, it was a really rough performance.
Actually, Minaur would be tough for Ruud.
Yeah, they've played a few times, and he's always been a problem for Casper. Well, maybe not always, but especially in recent years. But even
Actually,
going further, I mean,
maybe this is the time where Shapovalov has his third peak or whatever,
It kind of looks like that. Like he can just lose to anybody, but he's also the guy who would probably have any chance at, standing up to Carlos.
He is the guy with the
players-
highest ceiling in the bottom half right here. Like if you were to give me one name, I'd go with him.
Yeah, I mean, questionable with him and Berrettini, but like right now, yeah, probably Shapovalov. So yeah, Shapo Alcaraz would be the semi-final that we want to see. It would have some intrigue compared to the other matchups. And then you in the bottom half, you've got like Rune Medjedovic round one, which also feels like a 50-50.
That is your cup of tea right there. That is like
not really, because I would like to see them, clashing further into the event. I don't like that they're one of them is going out already,
Yeah.
At least it looks like the one that's going to win, like they'll have a good chance at a run. Alex Mikkelsen, you've got there, maybe that's dangerous, but otherwise, Humbert in no form at all. Yeah, maybe the winner of Medjedovic Rune will at least make it to the semis or something like that. Like that would be a bit of a, consolation prize for me. And then, of course, there's also Taylor
the best
Fritz on the other
semifinals
side
here.
of it.
Yeah, if you got like Fritz or Mahach against Rune, and then you got like Shapovalov and Alcaraz, that would be like a good Tokyo right there.
Yeah, there's potential. And last year, actually, Tokyo was amazing. Beijing delivered with the final, but Tokyo the entire week, especially because of how Arthur Fils was playing, and all the matches that he was just like getting into, and yeah, he had the chances to win in two, or he had the chances to win much more cleanly, but no, we went the entire way, and it was super fun. So last year Tokyo was actually really entertaining. And no Arthur Fils, of course, as he's still struggling with an injury. The chronic back issue.
He pulled out of Shanghai as well. That's such a bummer. He was having such a good start to the year, and I guess that means he's not even. Like,
it's a wasted season. It's a wasted season, pretty much.
Yeah, that's a shame. Matthew was talking about Zverev having a meaningful conversation with Rafa. Isn't that just like after Wimbledon he went to the academy and that was basically like, go after your shots, go after your forehand, something he's probably heard a million times for the last 8 years. But
Yeah,
you know.
he can literally just like enter Twitter and read it in 500 different accounts after any loss.
Yeah.
And this Fritz section is, for the record, even though it's Taylor Fritz, but it's actually pretty exciting because Fritz Diallo, we've already seen it a couple of times, but it's been close.
This draw for Taylor is tough. I mean, Botanuki is in form. Borges is also
Botanuki already
tough.
almost beat him in Shanghai last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, and honestly, any of Korda, even Giron and Mahaj, like this is a tough. And he's going to be coming off of the Laver Cup, the jet lag as well. Having just
overall, this feels slightly less lopsided, slightly less like one-man show than Sinner in Beijing.
Yeah.
For a few reasons, conditions,
I
first
think
time
Tokyo is the more. I think Tokyo will be the better event this year.
Yes,
in
it
terms of
feels more
competitiveness.
competitive, and also Fritz being the number 2 seed just feels a lot more dangerous right now than Zverev. So if he gets to the final, and because he's just defeated Carlos at Laver Cup, at least it's going to be a bit of a storyline. So it's possible they're going to take the titles. Who knows? In Halle Queens in June, of course, that didn't happen because Carlos won Queens, but Sinner lost to Bublik. That could also be a possibility here. I think this time, though, it would be at a different stage of the tournament. And I mean, I don't think we have anything else to say, right?
No, that's about it, really.
So I think it's time to go and probably to watch the last few games of Emilio Nava battling against Joao Lucas Reis da Silva in Buenos Aires. Just saved the breakpoint at 4-all in the third, Emilio. And that should be really fun. Hopefully Tokyo and Beijing will be as well. Tokyo feels like the event to watch, but who knows, maybe something will deliver in Beijing. That's the state of the ATP Tour right now. Alcaraz and Sinner are far and above anybody else. So when one of them is playing one event and the other is playing the second, you kind of expect the 2 titles. But let's see if somebody can challenge them. Ethnically Southern Californian, Vansh, thank you. And
Yep,
thank you to everybody in the chat. And thank you, Vansh.
Yep, thanks.
I guess I'll sign us off then. Thank you everybody once more, and we'll see you. I don't know where actually. WT Weekly was already there, but hopefully we're gonna have some content on the channel. Recently, it's been a bit slower with the tennis calendar working as it does. I think the producer is back in the video, back in the mix, so he can probably end the stream right there. Once more, thanks, and we'll see you on some future talking tennis content or whatever.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.